And his motto at that time is, Rangers lead the way, come on. And believe it or not, even in today's Army, when you salute, and if you're Ranger qualified, you say, Rangers lead the way, sir. You salute, they still say that. And it comes from what happened at Omaha Beach. Because they do go up, and they have to fasten Bangalore torpedoes, that they call them Bangalore torpedoes. They're like pieces of pipe together, and they fasten them together. And they have a charge on them. They run it up toward the German bunkers as they're being shot at, okay? To try to explode the German bunker to get inside. And of course, there's a monument to the engineers there because they're the guys that are carrying these things. And guess what? A lot of them never make it to the beach from the water. A lot of them never make it to the seawall. And so you've got people running around in total chaos, being fired on, being mortared on, being artillery on, okay, by the Germans, trying to find pieces of these Bangalore torpedoes that you can hook together, that you can use to shove up toward the German bunkers. It's total chaos. It is absolutely incredible feat of arms that the American soldiers at Omaha Beach were able to do this. But they did. And they shoved these things up to the bunker, and if you're ever at the Beerville Gap on Omaha Beach, you'll see a piece of that bunker is still there. A piece, by the way, okay, because they blew half of it to smithereens, okay? A piece of that bunker is still there that was blown up by those Rangers. And by the way, those Rangers are there because they're not where they're supposed to be. Okay? That happened a lot. Those Rangers are supposed to be with the rest of their Ranger buddies, with Colonel Rudder, who was supposed to take Pointe du Hoc. Okay, some of you again remember the assault on Pointe du Hoc. It was a large promontory piece with, supposedly, intelligence had said, big German guns that could range both Utah Beach and Omaha Beach at the same time and had to be taken. And so a Ranger battalion force, 500 to 600 men, was assigned to take that position. So early in the morning, right at the break of dawn, here comes Rudder and his Rangers in landing craft toward that point. Except one thing, it was the wrong point. Okay, it was the wrong point. And so Rudder realized, oh, it's the point down there. And some of the Rangers didn't realize it, and their secondary landing spot was where the Saving Private Ryan Rangers landed. That's why they're there, by the way. You see Ranger tabs on those guys. They're down there, not because they're supposed to be there, they just happen to be there. The rest of Rudder's force does go to Pointe du Hoc, but only because Rudder himself, by the way, after the war, Rudder became the president of Texas A&M University. Anybody here from Texas A&M? So. But James Rudder tries to convince a very unwilling naval guy driving his boat, no, it's not this point. The guy wants to let him off and get out of there, right? Because they're taking lots of fire. And Rudder said, no, it's the one down farther. It's about 400 or 500 yards down farther. The guy said, no, I'm not going there. You're getting off here, okay? And Rudder literally pulls out his .45, points it at the American's head and says, you're either going to take us there or I'm going to make your decision. And the guy said, well, maybe we'll go that way. And so they did go that way. And they dropped Rudder off. And this is where they shoot up the landing craft hooks and have to climb the ropes. Well, the first ones that they're getting ready to shoot up, right? They shoot. And it had worked so well in the exercises in England. Everything did work so well, right? You know, the duplex drive tanks, everything else. Everything was, you know, seemed to work well because it was always a nice sunny day when they did it. Well, these ropes were totally wet and soaked. So guess how far they went up the cliff? About halfway. Didn't work. And so they're digging around while the Germans are firing upon them, okay? They're digging around for ropes, trying to find some dry ones, and they finally do it. They shoot some up, and the guys start going up. And they go up with ropes, and they have these little flimsy ladders that they have. Now, the Germans have a problem too, though. It's always, you think, oh, it's really tough for the Rangers to scale this cliff under fire, and etc. It seems logical. But think about a German.
to shoot at the Rangers down there, I've got to step forward and go like this. And guess what? You got about 400 rifles pointing at you when you want to do that. Okay?
So the Germans didn't have all the advantage at Pointe du Hoc, as you might think. And there were only about 100 Germans there at Pointe du Hoc initially. And the reason there are only 100 Germans there is those big German guns that they were going to take were telephone poles in bunkers. The German guns were going to be placed in operation in about 7 to 10 days. Okay, they were not there. Okay, they were not there. They were back at a crossroads. So once Rudder gains a foothold on the crest, he sends a patrol down the road to a crossroads, and it's not far. It's there today, the crossroads, and they find the guns, and they spike them. They have some C5 and C4, and they spike them, and they blow them up and make them unusable, and they come running back. Well, that does nothing but really infuriate the Germans, and by this time they're getting organized, the Germans, and they counterattack. And for 2 to 3 days, 2.5 days basically, Rudder is under continuous fire. There are more than 200 U.S. casualties. More than 50% of the people, including Rudder himself, are killed or wounded. And most of them are killed and wounded not from the initial assault that you see in The Longest Day. It's from the fight after, trying to hold on. Because they're supposed to be relieved by the people, the Saving Private Ryan people down there at Dog Rib, okay? Beach on Omaha. They're supposed to get up to Omaha, they're supposed to whip around, and they should be there in 2 or 3 hours. That was the plan. They got there in 2.5 days, not 2.5 hours. And so it became a very, very difficult and bitter fight for Rudder just to survive. The Navy was wonderful, though. How many people here from the Navy? Okay. I gotta watch what I'm saying, but the Navy was wonderful. They decided, the orders were that they could evacuate wounded, but they would not give Rudder any reinforcements. Okay, because once they found out there were no guns there, why reinforce that? If we have to give up a couple hundred guys, so be it. That was the decision. That wasn't necessarily a naval decision. But the Navy was not allowed to take back anybody except wounded. And they did bring munitions occasionally to Rudder during that time. Let's go to the next slide. There you see what I'm talking about at Pointe du Hoc, the flimsy ladders that later they will establish. Initially they went up with ropes. Not much of several people fell to their deaths, by the way. Some of them weren't shot, they fell. It's quite a steep area, several hundred feet high. Next slide. Here you see Omaha Beach at about D+3. 6,000 ships. 6,000 ships are out there. Imagine that. And again, remember by D+1.5, meaning by the afternoon of June 7th, more than 100,000 American troops, or Allied troops, I should say, not just Americans. 100,000 Allied troops are there. By this time, on June 7th, the Germans are now the inferior force as far as numbers go. And you can see people moving forward.
This is a big bunker over here that's still there today with a gun in it, by the way.
Next slide, please. Here you see one of the major feats of victory. It's called the Mulberry Harbor, and it's at a place called Arromanches. Okay, Arromanches is at the absolute right flank of the British attack. Okay, and then from Arromanches to Omaha, there's this big gap, as I said before, about 50 miles, 50, 60 miles, almost 100 kilometers. The Mulberry Harbor is still there. After Dieppe in August 1942, the Allies realized that the Germans were going to destroy any port facility, so they had to come up with their own port. Okay? And so they decided to come up with what was called, codename Mulberry. And the Mulberry Harbor, there were two of them. One was going to be on Omaha Beach near Veerville, and the other one was going to be at Armanche. Both were built. The one at Armanche, by the way, was nicknamed Port Winston, after Winston Churchill, okay? This is the one that you still see out there today. There's all kinds of different areas, especially when you're low tide, you'll see them, especially French fishing boats are out there because it makes good fishing cover, so you'll see that. And the mulberries were a great feat of engineering. They're made out of concrete, and yet they floated them across the channel. Can you believe that? More incredibly, they were functional, taking supplies already by June 9th. So within 3 days of the landings, the Mulberry was hooked together, an artificial port, where the big ships would come in, offload, and then they built 3 causeways. 2 were miniature rail, and 1 was for trucks. And they led right into Armanche. And this, some of you have heard of the Red Ball Express. A lot of African Americans died in a continuous 24-hour resupply route that they ran to the troops. And this